Hi, Prophet. Welcome to Global Entertainment Mag. Congratulations on your new album, The Edge, by Prophet and the Cowboys of the Apocalypse. Now, I noticed there's been a lineup change within the year, so can you tell us about that?
Lineup change with St. Madness, you mean?
Yes.
Yeah, definitely. Over the years, we've had a number of people. In fact, I call St. Madness sometimes the revolving door of very talented, crazy people. But we just got a new drummer, and he goes by the name of Bone Scraper, and he's incredible. He fits the band perfect. I don't think we could be any happier, really. We've had Heinous James in the band now for just about 2 years. So, and then Devlin Lucius is still on bass, and he's been with us it's over 2.5 years. I think it's more like going on 3 years.
So now, are all the former members going to keep their band name as St. Madness and keep that chapter going?
What do you mean, like when they do their own things?
Yes.
Well, some of them keep their stage names, you know, and I encourage that, actually, you know, because, it's Buckethead pretty much is Buckethead no matter who he plays with. And so I thought that that's, probably a good idea. But DK is now playing in a band called Hollow, and Christian Satan is not really in a band at this time that I know of. But it's very possible that he'll play with us again in the future.
So now, in other words, St. Madness has been brought to a close, that chapter?
Oh, no.
Okay.
In fact, we just wrote a whole brand new record, and the working title for it is called Hunting Humans.
Oh, wow. Cool.
Yeah. No, we have no intention of closing up at all.
Okay, so you're...
At this time, anyway.
You're going to keep the Prophet and the Cowboys of the Apocalypse going in other albums as well? Yeah,
that's the hope. It's funny because I've always been a fan of Johnny Cash and Willie Nelson and Waylon Jennings and the more outlaw country artists. And, I just kind of wanted to see if I could make a record kind of like my heroes with a little of their flavor, but really kind of done my own way. And, I'm really, really glad we did it. And on this record, The Edge, we have members of St. Madness that are current members, and we also have former members of St. Madness on there. And I got a number of my friends that are musicians to participate in it as well. So it's kind of like, with that album, I get to bring together, my bandmates, but also friends that are musicians and so forth, and mix them all together and make a record. And I have every intention on making more records like it.
I really like the album The Edge. It does live up to all the heroes that you have in the music, in your favorites. But every song is different. Every song has a different tune. In the lyrics too, the lyrics are very heartfelt. They're all the things that you seem to have gone through in the last couple years that have been put down into those lyrics,
true.
The concept.
We started writing this music not long after I had cancer, and I had gone through chemotherapy and everything and so forth. And I think in somewhere halfway through 2006 is when we started writing the songs. Maybe it was summer of 2006. And anyway, it took me about 3 years to finish this album because, first we started recording the stuff for this album, and then St. Madness started writing a really good heavy record, which ended up becoming the Satanic album. So we decided to put the acoustic record on hold for a while and finish that record first, so we did. And then, just in my spare time, kind of pieced it together. And I wrote about, I think this is probably the most honest record I've ever made as far as feelings and emotions and so forth. And the song The Edge, which is the title cut of the record, of course, I basically put my heart on the line there. I was so depressed about still feeling the effects of chemotherapy, as well as my mother getting Lou Gehrig's disease and then taking care of her for almost 2 years until she died. I think all human beings sometimes in their life feel like they're on the edge sometimes, where you don't know if you can hold on anymore, or you don't know if you're going to go crazy the next minute, or and so for me, the edge is like standing on a cliff with God and the angels above me and hell and the demons and the fire below me. And I don't know whether to try to still elevate myself up to the angels or to just give up and jump in the fire. So that song is kind of like my way of crying out to God and saying, look, I don't know how much more of this I can take, and I need help. And so yeah, lyrically and musically and vocally, and it's a very, very heartfelt record, and everybody who took part in it really gave it their best.
Do you think that the lyrics and laying down the lyrics was the biggest challenge of all to this album?
They just kind of came out naturally. I mean, it's funny because I have a really good writing relationship with the guys on the album, and basically Andrew Mudd, who co-wrote 3 of the songs, he'd come up with the riff, and instantly I could just feel my heart in that song, and the words just came out. I think Just Another Day is a song that we wrote sitting by my pool, and it fell together in a matter of minutes, and The Edge I co-wrote with Christian Satan or Brandon Mullis, and that one took a little bit longer, but of course, it's a real intense piece. But I also think that I'm a Free Man, I also co-wrote with Andrew Mudd. That basically, too, I think was written sitting by my pool, and it just came out naturally.
That's awesome. Did you mix and master this album yourself, or did you have help with an engineer or a music producer?
Oh, yeah, I have a co-producer, and I work with Larry Elia with Mind's Eye Digital Studios. He's in Glendale, Arizona now. But Larry has co-produced about 5 of our albums. He's a guy that I trust wholeheartedly. He's got a great ear. He's a great engineer as well as producer. I mean, Larry has worked with, shitloads of people, and everything I ever hear that comes out of his studio always sounds good. So, and on the same hand, I'm a very loyal person to people that are loyal to Saint Madness and to me. And Larry has always, done a great job for us. So, we're planning to go back in there and record Hunting Humans.
That's cool. The Edge is up for the Phoenix Music Awards for the Record of the Year, and this ceremony is going to take place in Los Angeles on November 19th at the Paramount Theater. Can you tell us about that?
Yeah, Al Bowman is the guy who runs the whole thing, and basically, I found out about the Phoenix Music Awards from Larry Elliott because he had an award hanging on his wall in the studio, and last time when we were in there recording, I saw it and I was asking him about it. And once The Edge came out, I was so happy with it, I thought, I'm just going to submit it and see what they say. And I guess they have a panel or whatever that looks at the music and decides who to nominate. But anyhow, I submitted it, and I got a phone call from them a few weeks later that, Al himself personally, and said how excited he was about the record. And he said that he's quite a good cook, like a chef. Said that at night, whenever he cooks, he loves to cook and listen to the record. And I thought that was pretty cool, And then I told him, I said, well, my main gig is Saint Madness, and I've been doing that since 1993. And he really didn't know anything about us, so I showed him a couple of videos and sent him a couple of albums, and he just went nuts for it, So Saint Madness is also nominated for Rock Act of 2010.
That's awesome. I know The Edge, I couldn't stop listening to all the song tracks, and I can tell it is a labor of love from beginning to end, and it has that addictive quality. I consider all the songs off The Edge singles, like radio-friendly singles that you can play on the radio.
Yeah, I would agree with that.
Yeah.
Now some people, Saint Madness is kind of over the top, and lyrically, I mean, we go over the edge a lot and put stuff on our albums that you could never play on regular radio, that has the FCC and everybody involved. But all the songs on the Edge, as far as, I think the most hardcore song on the album is What, Probably High as Hell. Mm-hmm. And, that just talks about smoking dope, and there's not really anything too hardcore on there, but I would agree with you, yeah, every song on the album is something that you could hear on the radio.
Is it getting airplay right now on internet radio?
It's getting a lot of airplay, and it's actually too many stations for me to mention.
That's
We've
cool.
sent it out to, because of our relationship being in Saint Madness, we know a lot of stations. And, a lot of people have played our music for many, many years. So when The Edge came out, I sent it to every one of the stations that I know, and I have a huge list. And, I don't know, I just feel really fortunate to be doing what I'm doing. I mean, I'm grateful that I get to take part in making some music that makes people happy. And, that's really the bottom line of everything. I've had times in my life where, I've had a good amount of money, and I've had times in my life where I was dirt poor, and the money doesn't make you happy, but if you can create art and put out music that touches people's hearts, that's priceless, and I just feel so fortunate that I get to even be doing it after all these years, and I've been in music now for 31 years, and I can tell you in that time, I've had many, times where I felt depressed or bad and thought, I'm just going to quit, and, maybe I don't want to do this anymore. And lo and behold, something will happen, and I'll start writing a song or whatever. And, music is therapy. And in St. Madness, for instance, at rehearsal, I feel so fortunate because I get to go to rehearsal, and we rehearse 3 nights a week, anywhere from 2.5 to 3 hours a night. And for that time, I get to scream out all my feelings. And, I'm not a death metal singer or nothing like that. But, in the type of metal we do is very aggressive, and I sing, very harsh. And by the time rehearsal's over, when I go home, I'm at peace with the world. And I've often thought to myself, and I've said this in interviews before, what do normal people do with their feelings? I mean, I get to I can write songs, which is therapeutic in itself, and then I can go to rehearsal and rehearse them and get all that built-up frustration out.
I'll share.
While I'm singing.
Yeah, I'll share a secret to you as the listener. That song that you're putting out, that's therapeutic, becomes part of the listener too, because at some point in their life, they have gone through the same thing, and that's why they attach themselves to the song. So it becomes a classic. Yeah. It becomes a timeless classic. That's something that they have gone through.
Yeah, I agree.
Music,
and, I have to be honest with you, Tina. I do keep that in mind when I write lyrics. If you take the song "Goodnight Angel," for instance, I actually wrote that for 2 different ladies that were girlfriends of mine way back when I was in my early 20s, and they were both really nice ladies that I kind of mistreated, and I never forgot them, and I never will. And it's bothered me all these years. I know that's silly because I'm a lot older guy now, but it always bothered me that I had treated them bad. And so the Goodnight Angel is my way, even though I don't know that they will ever hear it, but it's my way of trying to say, hey, what happened back then, I apologize, and I wish you nothing but good luck and good things in life. And I knew when I wrote those lyrics, I knew that there would be a lot of people that could listen to that song and apply it to a situation in their own life. And that's cool, Like I said, I'm really lucky to be able to do that. I've had a couple ladies tell me that they played Goodnight Angel for girlfriends of theirs, and the girls instantly start crying and all that. And I thought, well, maybe in a way we've done something really good by making the album The Edge. Maybe it'll help other people and help them to hopefully think about being better people and so forth. And I've said this 1,000 times. There's so much bad news in the world that with my music anyway, or with St. Madness music, we want to do something that's going to give people a little mental vacation, whether listening to a St. Madness album or maybe The Edge or at one of our shows. They can forget about their problems for at least a little while and just either, we always put a bit of humor, and I put a little bit of humor on The Edge as well. And, it's good to give people a bit of a laugh, And so, yeah, it's therapeutic on so many levels, I know there's a lot of people out there that aren't really into heavy metal music, and they think, well, how could that be therapeutic? Well, it is. And especially it is for the younger generation that carries a lot of anger. They get to go to metal shows, and they either get in the mosh pits, or they sing along with the bands, or they yell and throw their fists in the air, and they're having a good time doing that instead of releasing their frustrations in negative ways. So The Edge is kind of that way as well. It's a much more mellow record, but the lyrical content and the feeling behind the songs is pretty heavy duty.
That's correct. And music, it was meant to be shared, and people, they love, like when they're stressed out and the way the economy is, they love coming home and listening to something positive as well. So it definitely helps.
Yeah, it helps everybody. Like I said, it helps me. to this day, when I listen to it, it makes me feel good, you know.
Mm-hmm.
And unfortunately, I finally made the record that my mom and dad would have loved, only it came out after they were both gone, which is kind of unfortunate, but
that's too
it's just
bad.
the way it happened. But on the Saint Tannic album, the last song on the album is called You Are My Light. And I wrote that for my mother while she was dying, and I actually got to play the final mixed and mastered version for her just about 8 hours before she died.
That's
really it meant a lot to
amazing.
me to be able to play that for her and to write it for her.
And she probably loved it.
Yeah. And she would have loved this album, The Edge, you know, but she did hear some of it while it was in production, but she never got to hear the final version.
Oh, that's too bad. Sorry to hear that.
And she hears it now, you know.
Mm-hmm. Yes, I believe she would, for sure. Are you going to come up with any videos off your album, The Edge? Like music videos?
Actually, I have a very good friend of mine named Gary Cox, who, if you go to YouTube and you type in Saint Madness, for instance, you'll see that there's a lot of videos on there made by a person who goes by the name Guitar Zero.
Okay.
Guitar Zero is Gary Cox.
Okay.
And I asked him, you know, to work with me to make a few videos for the Edge album, so we're in the process of doing that.
Are you going to be going on a tour soon for this album? Within the USA or
you know,
up in Canada?
I really don't know, Tina, because at first I just made the record because it's a style of music that I love, and, you know, I kind of got upset with Metallica when they went from Injustice for All to, like, the Black Album and then Load and Reload, and I got upset with them because as a big fan of old Metallica, I felt like they had kind of changed their whole image, their music, their everything. And as a fan, it's silly, but it upset me, you know? So what I did with The Edge is to let people know that this is a side thing, and I'm not changing Saint Madness in any way to become The Edge, and I'm not, you know, looking to walk away from metal at all. In fact, heavy metal music is my first love. So as far as The Edge is, I mean, to be honest with you, the album came out even better than I'd hoped for, and you know, it's getting a really good amount of attention. So the tour, the idea of a tour is very possible, but I didn't really go into it with that in mind. I just wanted to put it out there and see how people would respond to it. And to be honest with you, they've responded really, really well. But if a tour would ever happen, I mean, we'd have to have a sponsor or somebody get in touch with us to say, you know, here's how much money that we'll offer you, whether it be daily per diems or whatever, and, you know, this is how much of a tour we want to offer you or set up with you, and then I would do it. But, you know, other than that, I'm just going to keep making some records like this and, you know, continue to enjoy them myself and hope that other people like them.
Who was the artist that designed the cover for The Edge? Because he did a really excellent job in representing the album.
His name is Eric McFarlane, and Eric McFarlane did the artwork also. He did the entire artwork for The Edge. He also did the Saint Tannic album, Vampires in the Church, and We Make Evil Fun. So this is his fourth album working with us. And like I said, I'm a very loyal person to people that are loyal to the band or to myself, and you know, I'm that way with a gardener. I mean, God, if I have a gardener come out to the house and they do a good job, I'll keep using the same gardener, you know. And so Eric has always done such an amazing job with the artwork that, you know, I wouldn't even think of using anybody else.
Okay. Now, you own your own label called Nasty Prick Records?
Correct.
How is that doing?
It's doing good enough that we can keep putting albums on it.
And
no, it's still very underground, you know. But gosh, I don't know. There's no shame in being in the underground. I enjoy it, you know. And right now, the only albums that we put out on there are the 7 Saint Madness records, and of course now The Edge. And at different times over the years, we've talked to bands here around Phoenix that we really like about possibly working with them and stuff. But the truth is, I wouldn't put anybody's band under that label unless I could do more for them than I'm already doing for Saint Madness and so forth. So that's why I haven't signed any other bands to it or anything like that. Really it comes down to a matter of money. And we put all our own dollar in St. Madness since day one.
And you manage the band as well. Like, you do all the work, I understand.
Yeah, Margie Johnson manages the band, and she's been managing us since 1995.
Wow, that's a long
And
time.
Marge and I, have a really good relationship, and she loves being in the music business, and she loves St. Madness, and she loves The Edge. And, I could not have picked a better person to work with the band. I mean, she's worked very hard for a lot of years.
That's amazing. And, a lot of bands, they don't know, they don't seem to pick the right manager, and they don't know how to get started in the music business or get their name out there or get their own record label, and they don't realize the money that they can save, just getting by being independent and doing all that.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Now, I don't know if this is absolutely true, but I was told back when Korn did the album Untouchable, I was told by somebody who was very close to their camp that they had paid like $1 million when all was said and done to do that record, just that record. And it's very common for a lot of artists to spend $300,000 and so forth to make a record. To make Satanic, it probably cost us $6,000. And I can't say that it's absolutely as good as the Korn album or whatever. And I'm not talking about sales here. I'm talking purely production. Listening value when you put an album on, next to your own album. And I find it amazing. And then that's why we would probably go to Larry Elia at Mind's Eye Digital Studios forever, even if we were picked up by a bigger label. I think I would work that in the deal that, look, I want to work with this guy, because our whole intention when we make a record, we want it to sound every bit as good as anything that's on major labels. And, a lot of times I think we succeed in that. I don't know if we have every time, but, that's the goal there is we want to give 110% to everything we do, whether it's the artwork or the songwriting or, when we perform in concert or whatever. I don't want to be in the music business if I can't give it 110%.
Right. Have you been able to go out and play live shows within the area?
We did.
Yeah.
Last show was back in November, and our drummer, Sir Psycho, got a job offer up in Seattle, and the money was just way too good to pass up. Mm-hmm. So he came to the band and said, look, I got to move to Seattle. So we were looking for a drummer, and like I said, Bone Scraper, and man, I couldn't have asked for a better fit. This guy's style is exactly what we're looking for, and I actually knew him from years ago because in the 90s there was a band here in Arizona that was really popular named Torso. Mm-hmm. And he was the drummer from Torso, so I knew him back then. So I'm really glad that we now have an opportunity to work together. And check this out. Here's a little bit of trivia that very few people know about St. Madness. Whenever we get a new member, and we try them out and they try us out, whatever, and we all decide that okay, we want to make a go of it. They can't become a full member of the band unless they buy the band a bucket of chicken with all the side dishes, and it has to be KFC, and they have to bring, corn on the cob and potatoes and beans and biscuits, and they have to bring the whole thing. And tomorrow night, Bone Scraper is bringing the chicken.
That's funny. When you're playing live shows, do you have like a live sound technician helping with the sounds?
We do when we can get them, you know. It just all depends, Believe it or not, there are some venues that, back in the day years ago, you were always expected to use your own soundman, especially if you were a headliner and so forth. But there's some venues that now have said, no, we have a house sound guy, and, you guys, everybody who plays here uses the house sound guy and so forth. When they tell us that, we just accept it and do the best we can. But yeah, we do have a couple of guys that we work with whenever possible, because I prefer that we have our own sound guy, because they know our music and they know what we're looking for. And it's like night and day. I mean, if you have your own sound man who knows your music, you're going to sound kick-ass, you know, pretty much no matter what venue you play in if he's a very competent worker.
Mm-hmm.
You know, but some venues just are hell-bent on saying, no, you got to use our sound guy.
Because having listened to your previous albums on St. Madness and watching the videos, you would swear that everything was recorded with a live feel to all your albums.
You know, I think you hit the nail right on the head. When we record albums, we intentionally try to give it a live edge.
Mm-hmm.
And again, that's, you know, why I keep working with Larry, because he knows that about us. He knows, I mean, yeah, we're making a studio album, but I always want the albums to have a bit of edge to them, and you know, I don't want it to be too overproduced to where, you know, yeah, it's a great sounding record, but I like our albums to sound the way we do live.
Exactly.
And, you know, I feel bad when I, you know, buy a band's record and I love the record, and then I go see them in concert, and musically they don't really hold up to their record. We strive on stage to be better live than we are on the record. And again, I don't know that we always achieve that, but that's the goal in mind every single night when we perform in concert. And but when we record, I always make sure, you know, Larry and I work on it, and we want it to sound pretty much like we do on stage.
Right. It's really good. And from what I've seen from your videos and then having listened to the album, there's really no difference in sound. It's got that live feel to it, for sure. That's
yeah, and I'm glad about that, you know. Now, some bands don't agree with that, you know. Some artists, you know, want a studio album to sound completely studio, and you know, I understand that too. And that's the great thing about art, is there's something out there for everyone, and, you know, different people like different things. When we send our albums out to different magazines and radio stations and so forth that do reviews on them, you know, I understand when we get a bad review that you can't please everybody, and that's the beauty of it, is that, you know, there's music out there for everyone. But I'm also a believer that there's room for everyone. You know, I don't like to be too harsh of a critic of other people's art, because it is their art, and, you know, if it comes from their heart, then more power to them. I have my favorites, and, you know, like everybody does. But, yeah, we just put it out there, and you know, usually if we get a bad review in a magazine or on a radio station, I generally write the reviewer and thank them for the review, whether it's good or bad, because, you know, it doesn't do any good to write some guy who gave you a bad review and say, hey, fuck you, buddy, you know? I mean, it doesn't do your band any good, and all it does is make the reviewer think they were right. And, you know, my whole approach on the thing is, hey, they gave you press. And if they give you press, that's good for your career and good for your band, whether it's good or bad. And quite often, you know, I've seen bad reviews on bands, and if the guy or girl's really brutal about their review, it makes me curious about that band. So sometimes I'll go out and buy their album just because a number of people said they were horrible, and I'll go get it myself because I want to know myself if they're horrible.
Okay.
But we're fortunate, Tina. We don't get a lot of bad reviews, and, you know, we do get them here and there, but I'd say 90% of the time or more, we usually get favorable reviews, and I'm pretty, you know, proud of that.
Do you plan on putting any shows together for charity, get the fans to help contribute towards Lou Gehrig's disease with every album that they purchase, and the cancer?
You know, we haven't done that, but, you know, I'm not against it. In fact, many years ago, I used to put on a number of charity events where, you know, one of them I did back in 1991 here in Arizona. I put on a outdoor concert festival for Phoenix Youth at Risk, which was a lot of kids that came from broken homes, or they were in gangs, or they were drug addicts, or they had hit a really hard time in their life. And, you know, we for Phoenix Youth at Risk. And in California, when I was with a band called Avatron in the early 80s, I put together a concert. We called it a rock circus, but it was for the LA World Hunger Televents, and we raised some money for them for World Hunger. So, I mean, I'm definitely into it. One of the charity things that we do right now, and that we've done for, God, I think it's been like 3 years now, is there's an organization out there called Orphan Lyrics. And basically, Jason, the owner of it, approached us and said, would you guys be interested? I make T-shirts, and on the sleeve I put the Orphan Lyrics stamp, and I take a line or two from one of your songs, and we sell those shirts, and the money from the shirts goes to orphans. And basically, I was all for it, so I gave him the words, like the phoenix, your soul will rise.
Awesome.
And, yeah, out of the song Arizona. And so he's been selling our shirts now since, I guess, about 2006 or 7. And that, money from that goes for orphans. So, yeah, I'm definitely, I believe in giving back. I believe strongly in karma. And, I believe whatever energy you put out there, you're going to get back. And I know we all have people that we've known in our lives who do a lot of really horrible stuff, and you shake your head and you look at them and you think, well, gosh, I'm trying to be a good person and live my life right, and this asshole over here is going through life hurting people like a wrecking machine, and nothing bad ever seems to happen to them. But I promise you that one way or another, karma comes back around. Whether it means later you get a really bad illness or who knows. But I believe wholeheartedly that, what you put out into this universe comes back at you. And so, especially since we're just entertainers, our job is to make people feel good, not bad, generally. So, it's what we try to do. We try to put out something that either makes people want to mosh or jump up and down or have a good laugh or, whatever. But the whole desire for us is to make music that makes people happy.
Right. Yeah, I happen to agree with you on that one. So, have you had any really rave reviews so far on The Edge, other than radio?
Yeah, that's basically how we got nominated.
Okay.
And, excuse me, I just submitted it to, it's called the EA Charts, and it's out of a town called Hoorn in Holland. And it's really funny because when I was a kid, I lived in that exact town. But anyway, they're a charting site in the Netherlands. And he came and checked out the songs on the website that we have and really likes it a lot and wants me to send him an album, and they do charting. And their charting it isn't by how many albums you sold or anything like that. They have a panel of people that listen to your music, and then they start promoting you in Europe.
Wow, that's impressive.
Yeah, it's pretty cool because he wrote me and told me he really liked the music. But I've heard from a lot of people, Tina, and I'm, like I said, I couldn't be any happier. We just released this on February 27th, so it hasn't been out very long. And I love going to the MySpace site for The Edge because people write such nice comments and such nice things, and like we were talking about earlier, how many people write to say that the music really touches them, and before I leave this world, like we all are gonna one day, I want to be able to have left something good, and something good behind. And I often tell people that my albums are my legacy, and they're my way to speak to my friends and family when I'm not here anymore. So it's real important to me. When you're an artist in the music world, once you start making recordings and either putting them online or pressing them into records, your music is going to outlive you. And so I want to make sure that, when I'm gone someday, that I left behind something good.
You left it behind a legacy for sure. And I think The Edge really is a legacy. And it's a classic because, like I was saying, all the songs could be considered singles on radio. Will you be coming out with a vinyl album of The Edge signed by the band as a promo?
Man, I would love to do that. How do I do that? I've never looked into vinyl. Ever since we started making CDs and all that, I've just never looked into it. But yeah, I would love to do that. Believe it or not, when my parents passed away, I have all of their albums, and they have some amazing old Dean Martin records and Frank Sinatra and, Elvis and et cetera, and all that stuff's on vinyl. And I kept them all. I love vinyl records. So,
same here.
I would love to do that. I just need to get in touch with someone to find out how.
Yeah, so we can look forward to that in the future.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Before we wrap things up, is there anything that you want to announce at this point in time?
Well, are you calling me from Canada?
Yes.
Yeah, I want to announce this. Two things. number one, my mother was born in Prince Edward Island, and so she was Canadian. So I found out recently that I now have dual citizenship.
That's really cool.
Yes, that is cool. And the other cool thing is, I'm a big wrestling fan, and my family is too. So we went to WrestleMania here, and it was just here on March 28th. Anyway, on March 27th, I got to meet Bret Hart, and
Wow.
I got to tell you, for me, I've been a wrestling fan since the 70s. So for me to get to meet Bret Hart, I got to tell you, is one of the biggest moments of my life. And I'm actually reading his book right now. And, you know, what an amazing guy. I mean, as far as athletes go, and Canadian athletes, I mean, that guy is a great, not only a role model, but what a great person. And, you know, he was very personable with me. And I actually gave him a copy of The Edge.
Cool. Is there anything, before we close, is there anything you'd like to say to your fan base?
I would like to say to all the people out there who appreciate my music, whether it be The Edge or St. Madness, you know, from the bottom of my heart, thank you. And I love you, and I appreciate that you enjoy the music, and that's really why we do it. You know, it's not always about dollars or anything. It's about coming from the heart. And, you know, anybody that's a fan of our music, I really appreciate them, and I'm honored to have them as friends and fans. And thank you.
Okay, so now when are you coming to Canada, eh?
Man, all we gotta do is find a sponsor that says, I want to bring St. Madness up here, and we'll do it. You know, or The Edge, either one. But it's about finding sponsors. You know, if we can hook up with someone that's booking venues and so forth up there, believe me, I would like nothing more. And I would be very proud to come and perform in Canada, especially after what I just told you about my mother being a native.
Right.
And now I have dual citizenship, so, you know, I would love very much to come there and perform.
And there's a lot of people that would like to see St. Madness play live here.
I know. I mean, we get written by a lot of people from Canada, and a number of radio stations as well. And, you know, like I said, it's just about, because we're an underground band and we do everything out of our own pocket, you know, especially in this economy, as you know, traveling and everything like that is highly expensive. So, you know, basically all we need from someone is to pay for our airfare there and back, give us a place to stay, and provide a back line, which means, you know, we can't drag all our amps and everything up there unless we were touring. But if we were going to do like just one show, we got to be able to fly there, perform with, you know, a back line that's provided, have a place to stay, a little bit of food, a little bit of good smoke wouldn't hurt. And then plane ticket home, and we're good to go.
It sounds good. Well, hopefully that can happen in the future, but you never know.
You never know. I definitely look forward to it, and I would like nothing better.
Okay, Prophet, thank you for this interview, and Horns High, you rock.
Thank you so much, too. Thank you for having me, and I'm glad you really enjoy the record.
Oh, I do. Definitely. For sure.
Okay.